Gopal. There seemed to be some kind of last-minute maneuverings even before the vote happened. Sajith Premadasa, who was supposed to be the opposition face, he withdrew his candidature. He threw in his support with Dullas. Dullas, unfortunately, couldn't break the SLPP as much as many thought he would, so he ended up with just 86 votes. Was the result of today's vote almost like a foregone conclusion?
Yes and no, I think, Zaka, because basically the whole idea of Sajith Premadasa even taking responsibility or taking a front role in fixing the economy was not going to happen. He was not going to face the people because a lot of unpalatable and very uncomfortable decisions will have to be made now.
Correct.
On if he wants a peaceful kind of, if they want to fill whatever the IMF parameters are, then they will have to bite the bullet. And I don't think he wants to go down and face the people and say that, I've had to do this. He's just passed the buck in many ways. And they're not listening to the people. I mean, she's right. I mean, Diana is right. They have to follow the constitution. But there was also, I believe, a provision whereby the parties could have come together and, form some kind of a multi-party arrangement where they could have, found the solutions together. But that seems to have gone out to the window as well. So I don't know whether this was exactly what was obviously the parliamentarians are going to protect their own, their own. But the people, I think, have been really shortchanged in this whole exercise.
Aritha Wickramasinghe is also joining us. Aritha, what happens next? There is the argument that's being put forth by the Ranil people that, look, what we need right now is stability. What we need right now is a government that can negotiate with the IMF, secure a bailout package, elections or a political change, as many of the Aragalaya protesters want, that can wait. The most immediate priority for the government and for the country would be to fix the economic mess. Do you buy that argument? Do you see the Aragalaya protesters buying this election of Ranil Wickremesinghe?
I mean, the term Aragalaya actually means struggle, and actually the whole country is behind this struggle. But in terms of whether the protesters of the country will accept this appointment, I think, as the others have said, because of the lack of legitimacy and the lack of a mandate which Ranil Wickremesinghe has, and the unfortunate affiliation of him as being a supporter of the Rajapaksas, even though I personally disagree with that view, because if you look historically, Ranil Wickremesinghe's party and the Rajapaksa party have always been opposing each other. Correct. And they have regularly and often campaigned against each other. But we are in a very unusual and unprecedented times right now, where it came to a point where actually Ranil Wickremesinghe was appointed by the very man who defeated him and his party at the previous election. But of course, as to what happens next, Ranil Wickremesinghe will have to step down as an MP in Parliament, and he takes up the presidency, and he will have to appoint a prime minister and form, as promised, some form of unity government. It'll be very interesting to see who will he appoint as the prime minister. Yeah. Will he appoint the opposition leader, Sajith Premadasa, as his prime minister, or will he appoint someone from the Rajapaksa's ruling party, SLPP? Right now, it is quite uncertain. There are lots of positions which need to be taken up in the new cabinet. And as you said, getting the economy on track, bringing about political stability, some sense of normalcy is also very important for people. People are, as much as they are demanding systematic change, we should not forget that the reason why everyone came together to demand systematic change was primarily because of the economic collapse. I think satisfying people's primary economic needs will be coming first, and hopefully and certainly we will need a political and systematic change as well in order to prevent what has happened in Sri Lanka from happening again.
Diana Gamage, two things that the protesters and in fact a lot of the people wanted as a consequence of this crisis, this grave crisis that your country is facing is, number one, they want to abolish the executive presidency, and number two, the point that Aritha made, will the Prime Minister be an opposition figure, whether it's a Sajith Premadasa or anyone else, so that there will be a national unity government? Will such an arrangement work at all?
Well, yes, actually, the plan is to have a opposition as the prime minister, because otherwise it's not going to be, a national government as we were planning to do so. And what the Aragalaya people are asking for, everyone to be together and get this, sorted out. So what we would also say is that definitely as Member of Parliament, we would also say is that we would like to see someone obviously coming in from the opposition as the Prime Minister, because otherwise it's going to be a one-way, path, and then it can't work that way. So even the cabinet will have to be inclusive of all parties, in the cabinet as well, if we are going to have to work together, because that's exactly what the Aragalaya people want. And they want their issues sorted out. They want a proper, program. And what I can see is definitely Sri Lanka needs national policies. So far, we have not had any national policies in Sri Lanka. Mm-hmm. And if we are going to change anything, we're going to have to starting off with national policies in the country. And each and every one, without having to go for their personal agendas, we have to think of the people of this country, because the country is in such a state today. But obviously, we cannot put aside and ignore that the fact was that it was mismanaged to the core, and taken, the wrong advice and doing the wrong things. Obviously, there has been a lot of wrong things being done within the last, couple of years. That's why, we have had to face such a situation. And especially when it came with the pandemic, we should have expected that this was going to happen. And, not taking any more debts, because usually we are in 51 billion US debt in the country.
Yep.
And this is a huge debt. But what we have been doing is, for so many years, we have been going on a roll-on, and we've been taking debts and then covering up our debts and then holding and carrying on with the country, working within the country as well.
Neena, Gopal, one of the first orders that we got soon after the election of the new president was there's a ban on the protests in a 500-meter radius around the Galle face. How do you see this playing out? Will this dissuade the protesters, or will this actually further accentuate the protests?
From what I've seen so far, I believe the protesters have, maintained this sort of silence and have refusing to even chant any slogans against anybody. Mm-hmm. And you can see on people crying and absolutely upset. How long that is going to last, I don't know, because I think the parliamentarians haven't heard the voice on the street. They haven't felt the pain of the people. And for the moments when how long this will last is the question that I personally would really like to know. And from the people I've spoken to today, they've all said that they are also worried about what the Students' Federation and groups like that, which actually have taken over, or not so much taken over as moved in and sort of infiltrated the movement, will do in the coming days. Because the peaceful protests that we originally saw on Galle face have sort of turned, well, not violent, but basically not it really looked as if it was much better managed, and it was being sort of manipulated from behind the scenes. Mm-hmm. So I think that is definitely a worry. It's the security situation in Colombo and across the other cities, where there is I suppose a very great undercurrent which of hostility towards the present government. They would have been far better off, the parliamentarians, if they had actually brought in, if Sajid Premadasa, for example, had stepped up and said that he would take a far better position. It is time for the opposition to step up and, sort of counter what the SLPP government has done.
It's quite perplexing why the opposition would not do that. I'm sure if they did, there would be a substantial chunk of the SLPP also willing to go with the opposition on this.